Hello everybody, welcome back to Weekly Life Wisdom, and so far I've been your host, Zero Yeti. Let's go ahead and conclude our month straight of extinct organisms, with the first animal on the list being Argentavis magnificens, also commonly known as the giant teratorn. It was a species of giant flying bird in the family Teratornithidae that lived throughout the Epicuan and Adelahalid formations of the central and northwestern Argentina during the Hyracodon period of the Miocene epoch, some 8 million years ago to 5 million years ago. First properly named and described by Dr. Campbell and Dr. Tony in 1980, Argentavis stood around 4.5 to 6 feet tall, measured some 10 to 12 feet in length, weighed around 150 to 160 pounds in weight, and sported a wingspan of 16 to 22 feet long in length. Argentavis was roughly twice the size of the largest flying animal today, which is the wandering albatross, and was the largest flying bird to have ever lived, with only the lighter built but longer winged Pelagornis sandersi and the long extinct pterosaurs reaching similar or greater sizes. From the size and structure of the wings, it is inferred that A. magnificens flew mainly by soaring, using flapping and flight only for short periods. Especially for takeoff, it would have depended on the wind, as although its legs were strong enough to provide it with a running or jumping start, the wings were simply too long to flap effectively until the bird was some height off the ground. To deal with this, Argentavis may have used mountain slopes or headwinds to take off, and could do so from even gently sloping terrain with little effort. Argentavis is thought to have flown and lived much like a modern condor, scanning large areas of mountains and grasslands it called home from up high, searching for food in the form of ground birds, reptiles, small mammals, and carrion. Next up is Plesiosaurus, which is an extinct genus of large marine sauropterygian reptile that lived throughout the seas of what is now the British Isles during the late Triassic and early Jurassic periods, some 203 to 190 million years ago. The first complete skeleton of Plesiosaurus was discovered by early paleontologist and fossil hunter Mary Anning in the early Jurassic Age rocks of the Lower Lias group of the coast of England in December of 1823. Anning, who also unearthed several other species such as Ichthyosaurs and the pterosaur Dimorphodon, continued to unearth additional plesiosaur specimens for many years. Anning's remarkably complete specimen is considered the holotype, despite Henry de la Biche and William Conybeare having named the species 2 years earlier from fairly fragmentary remains, dubbing the animal Plesiosaurus from the Greek plesios, meaning near, and sauros, meaning lizard. Reaching upwards of 11 feet in length and sporting a small head, long slender neck, broad turtle-like body, a short tail, and 2 pairs of large, elongated paddles. This first and most famous member of the Plesiosaurus group caused a stir upon its discovery, as nothing like it was previously known. Unfortunately, Plesiosaurus suffered from the wastebasket taxon effect, and over the next 2 centuries, any set of remains remotely similar to it ended up being assigned to the genus without much further thought. Later studies of Plesiosaurus fossils would reveal that many of these remains actually represented completely different plesiosaurs, and today only the type species, being Plesiosaurus dolichoceros, is considered valid. In life, Plesiosaurus would have swam the seas propelled by its 4 flippers, using its U-shaped mouth and sharp teeth like a fish trap to feed upon crustaceans, snails, Bellamites, and fish. It likely spent its entire life in the water, venturing into warm coastal estuaries to give birth, in a manner not dissimilar to that of modern sea snakes. Next up is Inostrativia, which is an extinct genus of carnivorous therapsid that inhabited what is now Russia during the Wuchipedian stage of the late Permian period, approximately 259 to 252 million years ago. The first remains of Inostrancevia consist of two nearly complete skeletons alongside several more fragmentary remains that were found in the Sokolik assembled zone of the Kutuluk and Slaverno formations on the Oblast of Argentavis as part of the northern Divan River excavations during the end of the 19th century. Although prepared and mounted and exhibited in St. Petersburg by 1900, proper descriptions of the animals weren't published until 1922 by Russian paleontologist Vladimir A. Almotsky, who named the genus in honor of the discoverer, geologist Alexander Inostrativia. Today, three species are recognized, being I. alexandri, which is the type specimen, I. latenfrons, and I. urolensis. Reaching upwards of 11 feet in length, 650 pounds in weight, Inostrancevia was a large-bodied yet agile predator, which, like other gorgonopsids, was characterized by its iconic saber-toothed canines. Its limbs were elongated and heavily built, indicating it could run considerable distances, and the skull of Inostrancevia is equally well built, sporting powerful jaws that are capable of opening at a considerable angle, and they were lined with up to 5.5-inch long cutting teeth. With this combination of traits, there is little doubt that Inostrancevia would have been the apex predator of its environment, hunting other large vertebrates such as other synapsids, and the large armored Plesiosaurus such as Scutosaurus, which it would have had likely killed by using a lethal bite similar to the killing technique of the much, much later saber-toothed cats. Next up is Hyracodon, meaning hyrax tooth. It is an extinct genus of Rhinocerotidae. Genus of the Rhinocerotidae superfamily that lived throughout North America during the Lutean of the Eocene through to the Antiquarian of the Miocene some 47 to 20 million years ago. The first remains of Hyracodon were named and described by Joseph Melick Leedy in 1856. Today, 11 species are recognized, those being H. browni, H. leedianus, H. medius, H. nebraskiensis, H. petersoni, H. finis, H. extremis, H. modestus, H. primus, and H. princeps, as well as H. priscidians, reaching 3 to 7 feet in length, standing 1 to 3 feet tall at the shoulder. It sported a short, broad snout and long, slender limbs, ending in 3-digit feet. Herakrodon is the type genus of the Hyracodontidae, a group of so-called running rhinoceroses that fulfilled a similar niche to primitive horses such as Mesohippus. In life, Hyracodon inhabited the forests, steppes, and open woodland of North America, where they would have fed primarily as browsers because the forward-facing teeth in their mouth were not suited for cropping grasses as much as those of dedicated grazers. This may be in part why Hyracodon declined and disappeared during the late Oligocene and early Miocene, because during this time the landscape of North America was changing from large expanses of open forests to open grassland. This meant the loss of suitable habitat, along with the appearance of better adapted herbivores, in turn better adapted predators. All this combined together to outcompete earlier forms and drive animals like Hyracodon to extinction. Despite existing for over 25 million years, the Hyracodon genus died out without leaving any descendants and marked the end of the hornless running rhinoceroses. Next up is Ankylosaurus, which is a genus of large armored dinosaur in the Ankylosauridae family that lived throughout western North America during the Maastrichtian Age of the Late Cretaceous period, some 70 million years ago to 66 million years ago. The first remains of Ankylosaurus were uncovered by an expedition team led by Barnum Brown digging in the Hell Creek Formation near Gilbert Creek, Montana in 1906. The specimen, found by collector Peter Kazan, consisted of a partial skull, teeth, a shoulder girdle, and several vertebrae and ribs, Also, more than 30 osteoderms. Brown scientifically described the animal in 1908, dubbing the genus Ankylosaurus from the Greek words ankylos, meaning bent or crooked, which also refers to the medical term ankylosis, which is the stiffness produced by the fusion of bones in the body. Also, sauros, meaning lizard. The type specimen Magiventris is derived from the Latin magnus, meaning great, and Latin venter, meaning belly, referring to the large width of the animal's body. Since then, several more specimens have been recovered, including the first and only known tail club in 1910, and a remarkably complete skeleton assembled by Kenneth Carpenter in 2004. Still, however, just one species is recognized, that being A. magniventris. Standing between 4 and 6 feet high at the hip, measuring some 18 to 26 feet in length, and weighing up to 8 tons, Ankylosaurus was the largest known ankylosaurian dinosaur and possibly the largest ankylosaurid to ever live. Osteoderms ran across the top and side, particularly large plates covered the shoulder and neck, with smaller pieces in between to allow for movement. 4 large horns radiated out of the base of the skull, perhaps as a defense mechanism to stop predators like Tyrannosaurus from closing their mouths around the head. The tail club was composed of several overly large osteoderms that were all fused together with the end of the vertebrae. Initially conceived as a defense against predators, it's plausible that it was also used for territorial combat between rivals. In life, Ankylosaurus would have inhabited the upland and mountainous regions of North America, traveling alone or in small groups, feeding in a wide range of food such as fruit, ferns, roots, tubers, various invertebrates, and low-growing shrubs. As one of the last non-avian dinosaurs, Ankylosaurus went extinct some 66 million years ago due to the impact and after effects of the Chicxulub asteroid. Next up is the Bellamites, which are an extinct genus of ancient cephalopods that belong to the order Belemnites, that existed throughout the Jurassic period some 200 to 175 million years ago. The first mention of Belamites in writing comes from the Greek philosopher Theophrastus from the 4th century BCE in his book De Animalibus Quae Decurtur Invidere, who described it as a lingurum, aka lynx urine, which has been buried and solidified. Pliny the Elder in the 1st century CE did not believe in lingurum and called it a gemstone, and specifically Belemite, for the first time, although he didn't really recognize it as a fossil quite yet. This derives from the Greek belemon, meaning dart. The first mention of Belemite representing a fossil was made in 1546 by German mineralogist Georgius Agricola, who gave several hypotheses for the nature of this animal in life, including them being shellfish or sea urchin spines, sea cucumbers, coral polyps, or some kind of internal shell. In 1823, English naturalist John Samuel Miller classified Belamites as cephalopods, comparing them to the newly discovered Phragmocone remains of that of a nautilus, and included a resemblance to the sepia cuttlefish, erecting the genus Bellamites with 11 species. This classification was confirmed when the first impressions of Belemite soft body anatomy were described by English paleontologist Richard Owen in 1844. Today, only 4 species are considered valid, those being B. calovinci, B. hostate, B. hostatus, and B. paxlomosus. Unlike modern squid and octopi, Belamites had an internal skeleton made up of a cone tipped with a pointy calcitic guard, which is the most commonly found Belemite remain. Belamites in life are thought to have had fins on or along the guard for steering locomotion, 10 hooked arms which were used to stab and hold on to prey, and they reached up to 2 feet in length. Belamites acted as an important food source for many Mesozoic marine creatures. They also likely played an important role in the restructuring and restoring of marine ecosystems after the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event. Some species were adapted to speed and swim in the turbulent open ocean, whereas others reside in calmer nearshore waters, and still others lived along the ocean floor. Although incredibly successful, Bellamites and their kin soon faced steep competition by other cephalopods, namely ammonites, octopi, and squid, reducing in both diversity and number. Relatives of Belamites managed to persist throughout the Cretaceous, but were ultimately done in by the KPG mass extinction event some 66 million years ago. And our extant animal of the week is the greater siren, which is a nocturnal eel-like amphibian and one of three members of the genus Siren. They inhabit the coastal plains and wetlands of southeastern United States, from as far north as Washington, D.C. to as far south as Florida, preferring to inhabit bodies of water with slow or non-existent current, and a thick layer of substrate. Reaching upwards of 3 feet in length and 2 pounds in weight, they are amongst the largest amphibians in North America. They lack hind limbs as well as a pelvic girdle, and they have external gills all throughout their lives, along with small lungs. They lack eyelids and have a non-fused pectoral girdle, sporting small four-toed front legs. The coloration varies throughout their range, but they are generally an olive, green, or a slate gray color, with small yellow or green dots along their sides. They have 36 to 40 coastal grooves between their armpits and their cloaca, and younger sirens also have a light stripe along their sides which fades with age. To compensate for their underdeveloped vision, greater sirens rely on a modified Jacobson's organ and a highly evolved lateral line system which enables them to detect electricity. Greater sirens are primarily carnivorous, with the bulk of their diet coming from insects, crustaceans, gastropods, bivalves, spiders, mollusks, and small fish. They only occasionally eat plant material in the form of algae and other aquatic plants. Greater sirens are themselves preyed upon by American alligators, snapping turtles, herons, and mud snakes. These amphibians are capable of inhabiting seasonal and permanent wetlands thanks to their ability to estivate for multiple years if necessary, burrowing into mud and laying dormant inside a cocoon until conditions improve. Mating occurs in February and March, with mothers guarding clutches of eggs that hatch around 2 months later. The youth live in shallower water than adults, often amongst the roots of water hyacinth plants. Under ideal conditions, a greater siren may live upwards of 25 years. As always, take care to my guys, gals, non-binary pals.